You know, if there's one place in modern America where success is entirely determined or has been entirely determined by merit and skill, it's in professional sports. Of course, there are always going to be controversies about this or that player getting the starting job while this or that supposedly better player is on the bench. But overall, speaking in broad strokes, the people playing sports at the highest level are there because they're simply the best of the best. And in many cases, these are not people who come from privilege and wealth. You know, it doesn't or didn't matter what your socioeconomic background was. The people playing at the highest level were there because they were very, very talented and had worked obsessively hard. That's one of the things I always liked about sports. You can watch sports and see people who are extremely good at what they do, competing against one another according to the rules that are the same for everyone, and may the best man or best team win. It's not a perfect system. The rules certainly aren't perfect and most definitely aren't enforced in a perfect way, but still, generally it works, and it's fun to watch. And all of this, of course, means that the left has to try and ruin it. So over on ESPN, sports commentator Max Kellerman yesterday expressed concern, his antenna has been raised, he says, about the possibility that the top 3 quarterbacks selected in tomorrow's NFL draft might all be white guys. That's a big problem, to have too many white guys drafted in a row, Kellerman thinks. And he's not alone. But here he is explaining.
Well, a lot of football people really like Mac Jones the more they look at him. And so, I like you, Stephen A., I'll defer to their wisdom. But I will say this. I think what rubs people the wrong way, maybe like you, Stephen A., I know it's on my radar, is that sometimes quarterbacks rise, sometimes they fall. But what I've noticed in recent years, after decades of artificial barriers being put in place for black quarterbacks, that vis-a-vis white quarterbacks, black quarterbacks in the draft tend to fall pre-draft, their evaluations. And sometimes it's right, like Daniel Jones looks like he's going to be better than Dwayne Haskins. And sometimes it's wrong, like Mitch Trubisky is not as good as Deshaun Watson, or certainly not Patrick Mahomes, right? But I say Watson because he seemed to be the guy falling and Trubisky the guy rising, and Mahomes maybe didn't do either. But the point is, the correlation that can be made is that your status falls vis-a-vis white quarterbacks. And so that's why my antenna are up when I notice 1, 2, and 3 this year, white guy, right? But that may be correct.
Yes, well, you can't blame Max Kellerman. He has some unfortunate deficiencies vis-a-vis IQ points. And now he's worried that there's racism against black quarterbacks. As I said, he's not alone. There's a lengthy article on the website The Undefeated claiming that there is, quote, covert racism in the NFL, which makes it so that whiteness is favored. Reading from the article, it says, in the case of the lead-up to this week's NFL draft, covert forms of racism in the evaluation process tend to favor whiteness. Make no mistake, Fields, one of the NFL quarterback prospects, will be one of the first 5 quarterbacks taken in the draft. But the fact that he started the college season as the consensus number 2 quarterback prospect before inexplicably dropping as low as the 5th quarterback at times in some mock drafts behind 2 white players with lesser pedigrees is an indictment of the antiquated system as it pertains to black quarterbacks. Now, this idea that the NFL is somehow systemically racist against black people extends beyond the playing field. We've heard for years that there's a racist conspiracy to keep black people from being head coaches. The league is so concerned about this that they've adopted a plan to reward teams with draft picks if they develop minority coaches who go on to become head coaches or GMs. It's only a matter of time before similar incentives are given to teams to draft black quarterbacks or black players at other positions. The plan is to take this last bastion of sanity where merit and skill have reigned supreme and completely destroy it by forcing it to submit to the left's rules of identity politics. As we've learned, the left cannot allow anything to exist on its own terms and by its own rules. Now, certainly, if they can invent systemic racism in professional sports, they can do it anywhere. If they can find the white privilege phantom in modern professional sports, they can find it anywhere. So consider this. 70% of NFL players are black, or rather are people of color, to use the politically correct phrase. Black people only make up 13% of the population. So that 13% supplies nearly 3/4 of the world's millionaire professional football players, and yet somehow the league is still racist against that same group? And it gets better. Focusing specifically on quarterbacks, the position where white people are supposedly favored. 4 of the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks in the league are black. 4 of the top 5. And soon it'll be 5 of the top 5 once Lamar Jackson gets his payday and is past his rookie deal. So looking over to the other positions, we find that along with quarterback, the highest paid wide receiver, highest paid offensive guard, highest paid defensive tackle, highest paid linebacker, highest paid cornerback, and highest paid safety are all black. And usually the highest paid running back is black too, but every once in a while, you get a white guy like Christian McCaffrey who bucks that trend. But generally, that's the way that would go. And we could go further. The most high-profile, flashiest, and highest paid positions on the field are quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback, and probably these days pass rusher, so outside linebacker and defensive end. As established, the highest paid quarterbacks are black. Nearly every wide receiver in the league is black. Nearly every cornerback in the league is black. And pass rusher is a pretty good racial mix. So systemic racism against black people in the NFL? If this is systemic racism, then what would it need to look like in order to not be systemic racism? Do we need to simply evict every white person from the league? Should we make them all water boys? Should Aaron Rodgers be on the sideline collecting sweaty towels and Gatorade cups? What do the race hustlers need to see? What would make Max Kellerman's antenna go back down? The irony is that the people pretending to stand up for minority athletes, and we can hardly call them minority athletes as they are the majority in their chosen field, but the people pretending to come to their aid are actually only cheapening and degrading their achievements. The more artificial pressure that's put on teams to elevate black players and coaches, the more that those players and coaches are robbed of their achievements by casting the achievement as the result of a policy rather than their own skill and hard work. This is already happening with black coaches. Any black man hired as a head coach may well have gotten the job because he was the best man for it. Or it could be because of the enormous professional and social pressure put on teams with head coaching vacancies to hire a minority candidate. It's impossible to know now. Affirmative action, as always, hurts the people it's trying to hurt, so at least it succeeds in that, but it also hurts the people it's trying to help. And it does it all in an effort to solve a problem that doesn't exist. And that's why Max Kellerman at ESPN, along with all the other race baiters at that network, which is like all of them, and in sports media, all of them today are canceled. Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.